Maybe they've just joined Personify Health and they're making some healthy changes. Whatever it is, just feel free to give them a shout out. And when you give a shout out, you receive 100 points, and also the person who receives the shout out will receive 100 points. So without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen now and invite Seth to start sharing.
Excellent. Thanks, Julie. See if I can. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Great. Well, thanks for spending part of your lunch break with me. As Julie said, my name is Seth McCormick, one of the day shift chaplains. I've been with Carilion for 9 years, my first 5 years as Carillion's hospice chaplain here in Roanoke, and the last 4 years here in the hospital. And actually in 3 days, I will celebrate my 9th anniversary with Carilion. So good to be with you today. As a father of a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, I've always appreciated the friendship of Buzz and Woody. So thanks, Julie, for playing that song, that video, Randy Newman song. I would love for you all, just for your own fun, while you're listening in, feel free to put in the chat box, what's your favorite Hollywood friendship movie or scene from a movie? It's always fun to see what people are thinking that comes to mind. So our topic today is the power of friendship, and for many of us, we may wonder, how do we do friendship? We've got so much going on. I wonder if you would relate to these pictures. Some of us feel like we have to be a super dad to get everything done, or you need lots and lots and lots of arms to be a mom. Or even if you're not a parent, just to be a superhuman, to get all the things done that you need to get done. And so the question is, how do we have time for friendships? If you're old enough to be in the sandwich generation, you know what it's like to be sandwiched between having aging parents and taking care of your own family, maybe your own kids. Would love for you to respond with an emoji if this sounds like your daily schedule. I wonder how many of you might resonate with this. You wake up tired. You work a full day here at the hospital or wherever Carilion site you're located. You come home, you throw dinner together, you help the kids, if you've got kids, with the homework. If they're young enough, you're getting them bathed, you're reading to them, you're getting them into bed. And then you start your own schoolwork or your own reading, your own project. If you're in a relationship, hopefully you're connecting with your partner or your spouse in some way, shape, or form. And then you fall asleep. And so oftentimes our schedules can feel like we're living a rat race. And the problem with the rat race, as I love this little quote says, even if you win at it, you're still a rat. So this picture in this quote cracked me up. But the reality is we are. It's an apt metaphor. Wikipedia defines the rat race as an exhausting, repetitive lifestyle that leaves no time for relaxation or enjoyment. And I would say, oftentimes it doesn't leave time for friendships. And so the question is, who has time for friendships in a busy adult world? How do we make time for friendships when our schedules are so full? I love Lord of the Rings. I've got some friends who literally every year they sit down and they binge watch the Fellowship of the Ring or the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy all in one weekend. They gather as friends to do that. That's a big time commitment. So how do we make time for friendships when our schedules are so full? Well, we need to, before we talk about how, the reality is we need social connections. We need to put in the time and the effort for friendships. The American Psychological Association has found that people who have strong social connections throughout life experience benefits like a greater pain tolerance, a stronger immune system, and a lower risk of depression and death. So the more social connections you have, the healthier you are. The Mayo Clinic found that adults with strong social connections have a reduced risk of having depression, high blood pressure, and an unhealthy BMI, or body mass index. And just a couple of years ago, the U.S. Surgeon General sent out an 80-page document entitled Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. And the Surgeon General highlighted that the mortality impact of being socially disconnected is similar to that caused by smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, and is even greater than that associated with obesity and physical inactivity. So who knew that loneliness and isolation could be so detrimental to our bodies, to our health? So fill in the blank in the chat box for me. Friendships are a gift, and they take what? They take time, they take effort, they take sacrifice. I don't have access to see the chat box before me with my PowerPoint going, so I trust you all are having fun filling that in. So feel free to, what does it take for a friendship? To take care of ourselves and to have friendships, we have to be willing to put forth the time and the effort. I'm going to use a word that some people are allergic to, and that's the word sacrifice. The reality is friendships take sacrifice. I was visiting some staff and some patients in the vascular ICU a couple weeks ago, and a couple of staff people were talking about how they wake up early to go to the gym together for a 7 a.m. shift. So they're going to the gym, and one of the people, they weren't even working that day, and they still got up and met their friend at 5:30 at the gym. So sometimes we have to sacrifice our sleep. Maybe we need to sacrifice that umpteenth sports or dance practice from our kids so that we can have a coffee date with a friend. Or maybe it's sacrificing your pride, asking for help. I had a tree come down on our property not too long ago, and I had to swallow my pride and ask a friend if they wanted to come over and help me cut it up. And so we had a bonding party through chainsaws and taking care of this tree that had gone down on our property. So maybe it's asking for help. Or maybe it's sacrificing a grade on an assignment or on a paper. Can you sacrifice that schoolwork or that grade, that class, whatever it might be, so you can take that phone call to be there for that friend? And maybe it's sacrificing money to help a friend out. Many years ago, my first wife, now my ex-wife, after her second affair on our subsequent separation, my best friends from college really stepped up big time to support me during my separation and divorce. One couple flew me out to Seattle for a long weekend and got to take in a Seattle Sounders soccer game. My roommate from college flew me out to Boston and spent a long 4th of July weekend with him. I used to live in Boston for 6.5 years, and so being able to see all the old places that I used to love to go to with him, and got to go to a Red Sox game. And then that fall, when the divorce was all but finalized, 2 other couples from college flew me out to Grand Rapids, Michigan to take in the beautiful fall weather of Michigan, Lake Michigan, the pumpkin patch. These friends were huge for me in a really trying, emotionally difficult time, giving me that soft place to land, allowing me to cry, to grieve. But they also showed me how to have a good time, and that life was worth continuing to live. And so maybe you don't have the money to fly a friend to come visit you in Roanoke, but certainly I think we all have the money to take someone out for a coffee or take someone out for dinner, or to call them on a nightly basis, just to check in, see how they're doing, to remind them that you see them, that they're not alone. Without being melodramatic and coming from a Christian perspective, I try to live my life by the world, through the worldview of who Jesus is and what Jesus has done. And Jesus said to his disciples, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I've loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down his life for his friends." Now you might say, like, man, that's the ultimate sacrifice. That's dramatic. But before you write that off, think about all those powerful scenes in different Hollywood movies where the character gave their life for their friends. Tony Stark's in Avengers Endgame. Boromir in Fellowship of the Ring. Going back a ways, Russell Cass in Independence Day. For all you Trekkies, I've not seen this, but Spock in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy. Harry Stampier in Armageddon. Of course, Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series. Robert Neville, played by Will Smith in I Am Legend. Luke Skywalker, The Last Jedi. Of course, Jack in that epic scene in Titanic. Black Widow in Avengers Endgame. Lily Potter, Harry's mom. Katniss Everdeen in The Hunger Games. And finally, Woody. He sacrificed going to college with Andy so that he could stay with his friends. So if you can think of other movies where sacrifice of one's life to save others is critical to the plot, feel free to throw that in the chat box. So before you say, wow, Seth, I love my friends. I'm not sure I want to die for my friends, and I get that. I have a lot of life I would still like to live with my wife and with my 3 kids. So maybe we don't want to die for our friends, but we need to at least show up for them. Woody Allen has this great quote: "If 90% of success in life is showing up, the other 10% depends on what you're showing up for." So let's make our yes be yes. Show up to that friend's home when they're in crisis. Let's put our phones down. Let's put our faces up, look people into the eye, open our ears, open our hearts. Let's be someone that can be counted on. In my preparation for this webinar, I came across this article in the American Psychological Association's periodical, The Monitor on Psychology. And the article is entitled, aptly enough, "Friends Wanted." And the article starts this way: "It took a trip to the hospital for Catherine Jacobson Raymond, 56 years old, to confront a nagging concern she's had for years. She had no friends. I didn't have one person who could pick me up," says the journalist in Mill Valley, California, who went to the hospital for a small medical procedure. So that's how the article began. And so my question for you is, do you have someone that you could call if you were here at RMH needing a ride home? Could you be that person for someone else if they needed a ride home? Are we willing to show up for our friends? The reality is, as many of us know, especially as parents, you may have said this to your own kids, if you want to have a friend, we may need to be a friend first. I love this verse from Proverbs: "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." So if you notice someone in your unit or in your department who eats lunch alone, maybe invite them to the cafeteria. Maybe invite them to go get coffee with you. Invite yourself. Ask if you can help them to do a task, to give that next bath for a patient. If you're a praying person, ask God to open your eyes to see the people around you that might need a friend so that you can be a friend. We all have wonderful days, but we all have tough days. We all have tough shifts. Speaking of a tough shift, I'm curious how many unit directors or doctors or leaders we have on the webinar today. I want to share a brief story about a leader who showed up for me on a really terrible day. As I mentioned at the beginning, I started out as Carillion's hospice chaplain for 5 years, and I'll always remember our medical director, the first medical director that I worked under, Dr. Tommy Morrell. He's gone now, working, I think, down at LSU. But he was our former medical director, and we had a super tough hospice patient situation. If you've worked in the PICU in the last 10 years, you might remember this little patient. This particular patient was a young child, had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. So right there, it's tough having a child on hospice. And this child was in and out of the hospital over the span of years, eventually came onto our hospice service, would come into the hospital for various treatments. But eventually it got to the point where the family knew it was time to transition this little one to comfort care and to let this child die with dignity. And so kudos to the PICU team. They allowed our hospice team to come in and lead the terminal extubation. The family did not, because they had another child at home. They wanted to do the terminal extubation in the hospital. And so I can still remember our social worker and myself. We were supporting a large family, including another sibling that had the same disorder. Our music therapist was there playing guitar, and Dr. Morrell personally took care of removing the ventilator and pushing the meds to ensure that this child had the most comfortable and peaceful death possible. And as you can imagine, there was not a dry eye in that room. It was tough. It was heart-wrenching. It was sad. It was beautiful, all at the same time, in a way that only it was a good death, in only a way a hospice death can be. And so I tell you this story not to make you sad, but because I think Dr. Morrell showed an example of a leader who really stepped up for his team. He took the responsibility to be the one who removed the mechanical support for this little patient. He didn't want anybody else on the hospice team or the PICU team to have to carry that weight. And then afterwards, once the family had left the hospital, he took our team out, our little group, hospice group, out for dinner to Fork in the Alley. We were all grieving, we were stunned, we were sad, we were thankful. There was just such a mix of feelings going on. And so what a blessing that Dr. Morrell sacrificed his time away from his own wife and his own kids to be present for our team. And to be present for our team not just as a doctor, but as a peer, as our coworker, as a friend, as a fellow human being. That example really left a lasting impression on me. And so my question for the leaders who are on this call today, the unit directors, the doctors, those in leadership, if you want to build cohesion for your team, you have to figure out a way to slow down and to show up, to be present, and to provide that time and space, especially after stressful events, for the team to be together, for the team to process, to heal. Your team will benefit, and the friendships will too. So how do we be friends on a normal day? Because hopefully we're not having shifts like that regularly. The reality is I think we want a community of people to do life with. We want that coffee shop that we can go to. We want that those besties across the hall from us. We want to show up to that restaurant, that bar where everybody knows our name. So how do we be friends on a normal day? I think it starts by putting our phones down, to turn off the devices. We are more connected than ever through our phones, through social media, and yet reports keep coming out that we're lonelier than ever. I just checked. According to Facebook, I have like 1,500 Facebook friends, which really means nothing. It's just a number, because my actual circle of friends is quite small. And one of the things I've noticed as a chaplain is part of, my role here at the hospital is to meet people where they are. And so I spend a lot of time engaging with folks, walking around, and I'm always amazed and saddened by how we are so engrossed into our phones, even when we're sitting across the table from someone, having coffee or having lunch, and we're on the phones. And so let's put down the phones and look up and look each other into each other's eyes. Now, the next thing I'm going to say, I am guilty of this, but I want to ask, what do you do when you walk into an elevator? Certainly, we're not going to build a friendship within a 30-second elevator ride. But how do we engage when we walk on the elevator? Do we smile? Do we greet the person? Do we say hello? Or do we immediately pull out our phone and pretend to be checking the latest text or the latest Perfect Serve message? Do we retreat or do we engage? I hope as we go on the elevators, we're ambassadors for Carilion, but we're also ambassadors for just the human race. We need to be kind, and so let's engage. Smile, say hello. It's a Friday. Hey, happy payday Friday. Pay them a compliment if someone looks nice, or if they're wearing something of a favorite band or a favorite sports team, strike up a conversation with them. Is there anything I can help you with if the person looks like they're in distress or they're lost in the elevator? And then say goodbye when you're getting off the elevator. Again, this minute interaction isn't going to build to a lifelong friendship, but it is a step to being kind and being engaging and getting outside of ourselves and being others focused. So say goodbye. Hope you have a great day. Let's make this a great one. Have a blessed day. I hope your loved one gets better. As an adult, how do we make friends? I'm no Dr. Phil. I oftentimes wonder, how can I be a friend? And I think part of it is being a familiar face, is showing up. Getting back to that Woody Allen quote that I mentioned earlier. The American Psychological Association noted that the idea that familiarity breeds attraction is long established by research. So stick to your routine. If you go to the mailroom the same time every day, you might run into the same people at the same time. Go to the coffee shop at the same time during the day. Be a norm at that favorite restaurant or that favorite coffee shop or that favorite bar. Another way to build friendships is to divulge a secret. Take a risk and share something personal. Be vulnerable. Research by Stony Brook University professor Arthur Aaron showed that gradually increasing the depth of questions and answers between strangers can spawn friendships in as little as 45 minutes. So don't be afraid to share that skeleton from your closet. As an adult, how do we make friends? Join a club or a hobby. I'm a runner, not as much as I used to be, but I still try to run and still connect with friends. In exercising, when you're doing it with others, it reminds you that you're not in pain, you're not as cold, you're not as frustrated because you're distracted by the friends that you're with, and it's a wonderful accountability. It makes it fun, provides that camaraderie, that fellowship. I've run 6 marathons in my life, and when I've run the marathon alone, I've hated it. And I've told my wife, don't let me sign up for another one. But when I've run a marathon with a friend, it's been a totally different experience, a joyful, I can even say a joyful experience, because you're just able to talk and converse and pick each other up when you're down. And so it's a joy, whatever your exercise or however you like to torture yourself to try and to stay in physical shape. If you can do it with a friend, it really helps you to keep that habit going and to choose your physical well-being. Another way we can make friends is through work. Duh. Your coworkers, we have often you have the same values, same passions, same gifts because you're working there together. So instead of jumping around to different units, set down roots, make yourself known, invite others to join you. If you're single, host a Valentine's Day party for all the singles on your unit. If you're married, go on a double date to a Salem Ridgeax game. If you have kids, invite a coworker to bring their kids over for a play date. Get creative. Another way to make friends is to volunteer. If you love to hike, volunteer with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and do some trail maintenance. Or if you love animals, I know there are lots of pet lovers out there. Volunteer at Angels of Assisi. If you love to serve, the rescue mission is always looking for folks to help. How do we make friends? Another opportunity are book clubs. It provides that accountability to actually read the book that you want to read, but you also have fun talking about it with others. Maybe you love music, so going to concerts, meeting people up at Dr. Pepper Park or Elmwood Park. Recovery groups are wonderful ways to make friends and to support one another and care for one another, whether it's AA or NA or a grief share. I was a part of a divorce care group that was a huge blessing for me in that season going through my divorce. So support groups are a great place where you can find friendship and connections. And if you need a group, just Google it. Go on Facebook. It's amazing what groups are out there. You might even scroll through who's on this webinar today. And if you see someone you know that you haven't talked to in a while, strike up a conversation with them. According to psychologist Robin Dunbar, our capacity for friendships really maxes out supposedly at 150. Obviously, this may be different for each person, but as you can see by the graphic, there are various levels to how deep we can go with how many people. As you know, friendships take effort. They take consistency. There has to be a willingness to be open and vulnerable and authentic to what you're going through and experiencing. You have to let people in for them to feel like they can let you in. And it takes kindness. It takes love. We know our world needs it. Another way we build friends is through the golden rule. All 3 of these world religions have some sort of form of the golden rule, and while we're not trying to impose our cultural values on others, our friendships would be blessed. Our society would be blessed if we lived by the golden rule. It's ancient, it's tried, it's true, but our world would be such a better place. So before you lash out with a word in response to a Twitter post or a Facebook post or something on Instagram, think to yourself, how would I want to be treated? As you get into the elevator, as you see someone at work, treat others the way you would want to be treated. One of the units, there's a sign that says, as they're walking out of the break room, it says, be the type of coworker that you would want to work with today. I thought that's a great point. We need to be the types of people that we would want to spend time with. When we're kind, when we're loving, when we're living out the golden rule, we have an opportunity to build those relationships, build those connections. So you've got a friend in me, the power of friendship. That is the end.